Well, hi, and welcome to my shop. Thanks so much for joining me here as I go forward, hopefully another solid step with this radio. I think I'm going to be focusing on three particular capacitors in here. This one, pretty sure it's this one down here. All of them very highly rated. They're rated at 1100 volts, which is a little bit unusual to find a capacitor with that high a rating in a radio like this. And there's something on the schematic that's worth taking a peek at, so that's where we're going next. So here's the schematic. Let me just shrink it a little bit, the whole thing on. And the three capacitors I'm interested in today are this one, a little bit poorly drawn in here. See, it says 1100 volt test. This one also says 1100 volt test, and this one. Well, they all have something in common. They're all connected to B minus, and I think what you could say is common about another thing that's common about them is that they all represent an exposure or a shock hazard. I think, yeah, you might have to eat those words a little bit. Certainly this one does. But look at these notes here. This is the part I think is quite interesting. So it's talking about three changes. Each one has a triangle with a letter in it. A letter is a script written letter of the alphabet, not a number. So that's the letter A, the letter B, and the letter C. So this refers to where the symbol A shows up. This one refers to where the C shows up. You can see the C sitting right here. So that note refers to this capacitor. Likewise, this is the B. Let's look at B. 1 megohm resistor added at B. And there's B, and there's the 1 megohm resistor. So in an earlier design of this radio, this resistor didn't exist. So it would have had this resistor, and I think there's another one down the way here. This one on the AVC line. So what they've done, and this I should continue. This capacitor, and there may be another one up in here somewhere, this one here, are intended to kill any RF. But I guess maybe it wasn't 100% effective, or more likely there was a feedback problem in the radio, because essentially the AVC line is connecting grids together. So I'm going to guess to improve the isolation, they put a megohm resistor here and a capacitor here to drain the AVC system beyond the 1 megohm resistor. So just additional filtering here, basically. So A and B kind of came in together. C, is there more than one C? My gosh, there's 2 C's here. I didn't notice that before. Oh my gosh. So there's actually 1, 2, 3, and this one. 4 specialized capacitors, all with this huge voltage rating. Now here's the part I really want to get to. Yeah, I'm getting somewhere here. So we'll look at the note for C. Was a 600 volt capacitor, is now the same size 1100 volt capacitor. So what this means is there's a really solid decision made to install higher rated capacitors. What is going on here that you need to protect the radio from 1100 volts? It's beyond me. Like we're talking about lightning and lightning, believe me, these capacitors are not going to withstand lightning. So why these are so high is something I'm really having a hard time understanding. You know, unless their thinking was these were all safety oriented capacitors and they just better put in really good ones, which would be why the word test is there. Which means they know for sure that these capacitors can withstand 1100 volts. They've been tested at 1100 volts. That's what that means, I'm pretty sure. Why so serious? I've seen lots and lots of radios, and I just put fairly regular capacitors in these positions. Well, we don't know the history. We don't know what has occurred in this company's history with their customers, with potential lawsuits. Maybe somebody got a shock or something. I don't know. Something prompted the engineers to make this change and spend the money to get these, what are probably somewhat obscure capacitors at that time. And I'll be replacing these with 600 volt capacitors. I certainly don't have 1100 volt capacitors. And why not make this one also 1100? Why 900? Why not 1100? T.1, 600 volt, 900 volt AC test. AC test. AC test, but just says test. I don't know. I can't extract any more from this. So let's see. I've done this guy. I think the next one I want to do is this one. And I think I know where it's located already in the radio. Let's go to the radio and take a look. Pretty sure it's this guy right here. This line's coming to a B minus connection point, and the other is going up, draining the frame of the tuning capacitor. Very good looking capacitor. I'm going to leave a little bit of a lead here so I can test it. It says right on it 1100 volts. 60 cycle test. Written right on it. Never seen that before. Type. It's got a type number. Type 87 or something. Made in Canada. Very carefully waxed. Like these look like higher quality capacitors. Let's find out. They really are higher quality. Didn't I test one of these? I don't think I've tested one of these exact ones yet. So far, the capacitors I've tested, they're here. They've all proven to be leaky enough to warrant replacement. Why would these be any different? Because these are expensive, higher quality units. Okay. Must be dirt on my control there. 50 volt setting. What do we get? So it's opened up about 3/4 of the way, which is not particularly good. At 150 volts, I don't think it's going to open at all. So it's another, I've done this so many capacitors. This guy doesn't rank very high on the old capacitor scale, even though it's really nice looking. What has happened to it? Probably has moisture inside. That's probably all it really is. But there can be other chemical changes going on with the components inside a capacitor like this all by their lonesome. They don't need extra moisture necessarily. There's always a little bit of moisture in them, even from the manufacturing process. You cannot dry things out. It's 100%, or it's really expensive to get to 100%. So a little bit of moisture left in, and 50 years later, look what's happened. Now look what's happened. What? I have a visitor. Yeah, it's because, see, we're all in the shop today because it's a rainy day. We're all in here. Now, how are you going to help me? So first I got to get the right size here. It's a 0.05. Are you going to help today? My little kitty? Or is this your way of saying, let me outside? Now, Shadow, what do you have to say to the audience today? Anything else? No, she's so this cat She minds her own business and is in her own world until she wants to relate to you, and then she'll pay attention. Otherwise, you might as well not be in the room. Now, how am I going to work here? Come on, go over this way. There we go. I just brought it around this way. I don't really have to. I can actually come up underneath here. Smaller capacitor gives you a few more positioning options. We stick it like that. So the last many days here in Aurelia, the weather has been just fantastic. It's been perfect outdoor weather. It really doesn't get much better. And that's where I've been. My wife and I have been outside all day, every day here. Let me just turn on my soldering iron. But today is a different day. It's rainy and wet. Isn't that right? Rainy and wet. How disappointing for the cats. So our two cats go outside. They interact with the birds. It's unfortunate for the birds when that happens. Chipmunks, usually that works out okay. And the big groundhog that lives under our neighbor's shed that runs around our yard now and then. It's quite funny to see this big fat groundhog, or I think you might call it a woodchuck in other parts of the world, and with a cat running behind it. Very funny stuff. Okay, should be ready to go here. And also, not only beautiful weather, hot weather. Today there are heat warnings. We're starting out with rain, but eventually it's going to be very, very hot outside. Did you hear that, Shadow? You're going to get a chance. This is a pretty big terminal here. If the purring's coming across on the video or not. Okay. Just to come up. So I've had two capacitor changes. I really wasn't expecting them to affect the operation of the radio, but they seem to have affected the alignment. So I think I'm going to change all three of these before I operate the radio again, because these may be having an effect also. Okay, that's one. Next one will be, this one I'm not too worried about actually. This one's just going to the phono. It's this one down here that I'm quite interested in. Let's put this right over. Get a new perspective on things. This guy. Okay. Top terminal, highest terminal in the radio. So here it's got the power cord coming to it. More than that, I put a clip lead on it so I cannot make a mistake. Okay. The wax cover is given out on this one. It cracked up through there from shrinkage. Let's see what it's worth, or how well it works. I know what it's worth. My guess is this one won't even tolerate 50 volts. Okay. 50 volt setting. No, just like the last one. Same as the last one. Okay, and this is also a 0.04. It's 50 cycle test. Cycle test. I got more of these in storage. I'm running out of capacitors here. Nice and neatly done. Good. Trying to avoid putting my hand right in front of the camera. hook. That's a little better. Pop right off when I heat this up. No. Good and solid. Okay, so those are the two I'm concerned about. The last one is really a capacitor to nowhere. This one here. For now. For now we're going to leave it. Find out. Shall we find out if the radio works? Let's find out. Didn't work last time. I doubt it's going to. Doubt it can be somehow. It's sort of got corrected. Whatever it is that's gone wrong. Probably. What's that doing there? Okay, radio all by itself, all by its lonesome. We'll switch it on using the dim bulbs here. Perfect. At the very least, I want it to make some sound, some noise, and pick up. Change when I tune it. That's the very least. That's 590. That's not bad.
The end in October, and it could go as late as I think October 12th. December 1st.
590. Now 640. 680. Right there. We'll take a shot at 860. Ooh. Wow. The string was straight up, wasn't it? Okay, so contrary to what I said about changing those capacitors wouldn't bring it back to life, it seems to have brought it back to life. I wouldn't be surprised though, alignment will make it work even better. So I think that's the end of those capacitors, the high test capacitors. Now there's a bunch more left in there I have to think about changing. So far every capacitor I've removed, no surprise, is showing leaky enough to make it worth changing out. So I think that's what's next with this, just some more capacitor work on it. Very good. Thanks a lot for watching. And the sun here today in Aurelia, the sun is supposed to come out during the day, But then by dinner time, we're into thunderstorms. Do you hear that, cats? We're going to get outside for a while. Yay! See you on the next video.